Hello, welcome to another episode of the Radical Podcast. My name is Ryan McKenna, and this is the podcast where we discuss radical ideas regarding society, ourselves, and how we see our place in everything. Today, I'd like to talk about consciousness, and it's a big topic, but we're going to try to condense it into about 20 minutes. For those of you with shorter attention spans, you may want to skip this one, but I'll try to make it as succinct as possible. So we'll start with what is consciousness? Well, consciousness is the witness. It's that which perceives everything. In fact, if you look at a definition of consciousness, you'll find that it's perception, awareness. And that is all it is. And in that, consciousness is you and me, dogs and cats, and all of life. In fact, many people believe it is all non-life as well as we define it, because all non-life inevitably is processed through life and becomes that life. For example, all of the iron that in your blood was once considered not to be alive or not to be part of anything alive. It was part of the Earth's crust. And one day it most likely will be again. The point that I'm making is that consciousness is behind everything. And everything is a part of consciousness. It is that which sees, that which witnesses, that which perceives. So you might be thinking, well, my consciousness is more than that. It's who I am. Well, it is. It is who you are. But what you're confusing is the parts that aren't you. The parts that aren't you are the thoughts. The thoughts are things that happen to you. Consciousness witnesses the thoughts. It's very important not to get those two confused. Because when consciousness witnesses thoughts, and does so dispassionately, when you don't get attached to your thoughts, when you see them as a product of literally everything in the universe, they can be a very useful tool. They can guide you on your way. They can prove to be symbolic abstractions of absolutely everything. So long as you don't take them literally, and so long as you don't take them personally. Consciousness being the witness, and being you, witnessing thoughts, witnessing feelings, witnessing life as it happens. The witness can only exist in the present moment. Thoughts can be of the past, of the future, of what is happening right now. But consciousness can only be in the moment. This is important because what it means is that consciousness can only witness thoughts in the moment. All thought happens now. All consciousness happens now. Everything only happens now. When you think of memories, that memory is a thought that is happening right now. It is therefore affected by what is happening right now. That memory is changed by your current circumstances. How you see that memory has everything to do with how you feel right now. Right after a breakup, and you think about your ex, you might be saddened or angered. A year from then, you might look back with curiosity, with gratitude, with regret perhaps. But ultimately, the point is the same. The memory is not the same. The thought is not the same because the moment is different. So, what is consciousness? Consciousness is the ever-present awareness behind you. Dissociating thoughts from who you are is one of the primary teachings of virtually everyone who's ever claimed to be enlightened or aware. Recognizing that the present moment is all there is. This is also a cornerstone because it helps you realize the illusion of time. It helps you recognize the illusion of the ego. Fundamentally, the ego is what consciousness is always watching, because everything is filtered through the ego. Every thought that goes by and every memory, every reaction that you have to present moment stimuli is a product of every experience you've ever had, every piece of information that you have taken in to who you are. Everything you do is a product of everything. The ego is your story. It is the story of, I was born in such and such a place, and I grew up with such and such a parents, and I had such and such a friends, and I like to do such and such a sport, and so on and so forth. That story, that entire story, is the ego. It produces all feelings and all thoughts about what is currently happening. So, recognizing that the ego is a collection of thoughts and memories and stories, and it is not who you truly are. Who you truly are changes in each moment. Every moment, the entire state of the universe changes. Absolutely everything. And in fact, if you watch anything alive for long enough, you will see that every moment it changes. Who you are is the ever-present consciousness that watches the thoughts and watches everything else happen. You might think, well, why? Why would I be that? That's awfully boring. You're just watching. You're not feeling anything. You're not thinking anything. But that's why there's the ego. And, in fact, that is why we fall for the ego every single time. Without the ego, there could not be love. There could not be passion, art, music, any of these things. Our drives, our ambitions, our goals, all of these things, they're all part of the ego. But the ego is best recognized as a tool, as a bag of tools, a bag of tricks for you to carry along your way. Every experience, every lesson, every mistake, every heartbreak, it's another tool. Something that you can look at and learn from, so long as you don't get attached to it. This is the real lesson of consciousness. This is the real lesson of ego. You live as the ego. We do not walk around every single day thinking of ourselves as the infinite. We go around every single day thinking of ourselves as our identities and participating in the drama as such. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But there must be balance. Having this basic understanding of the difference between you and your ego is the key to the difference between the start of a fight or the start of understanding. Because when you recognize that another person's thoughts, another person's actions, and another person's beliefs are a product of absolutely everything, they are a dynamic construct, a dynamic entity that changes from each moment to each moment. When you recognize that this is true for every single life form in existence, that it's all dependent, that it's all a product of the interplay between universal systems, and when you recognize that the same consciousness that is behind your perception or your experiences is behind theirs, when you look in their eyes and you see yourself in them, your true self, that universal consciousness, and you recognize the ego is the source of all sense of separation. The ego lives separately. Consciousness lives as one. When you are present, truly present in each moment, when the ego and its tricks falls by the wayside, you recognize that you are one with everything. You synchronize with everything much better. There's less resistance. And as a result, things flow far more smoothly. The Tao masters recognized this eons ago. So did Zen, Buddhists, many Hindus, and many others, Gnostic Christians, pagans, Wiccans, Druids. This has been a teaching that has been repeated many, many times. That your story is important. It's part of the experience that you are having. But it is not to be confused with who you are. Because it is when we confuse the story for who we are that we start to think of ourselves as separate from the whole. When we forget that we are everything. When we forget that everything flows through us and through every other life form here. We see other people as flawed. We see them as completely confusing, completely baffling. But when we see that they're only doing the only thing they can in each moment based on the circumstances, we can forgive. And forgiveness, understanding, compassion, those have to be the cornerstones of our understanding of all life and all reality. Because all life and all reality is us. It only makes sense to be kind, to be compassionate to yourself. To recognize that to hurt part of the whole is to hurt the whole. Consciousness is truly universal. The present moment is universal. You are universal because you are a product of the whole universe. There are many who discuss fractals and holographic systems, and I believe that those are excellent descriptions of each of us. Each of us is a small piece of the whole and representative of the whole in every way. If the whole is what we are shaped of and what shapes us, then it is encoded in us in each moment. In each moment, because your state is a product of the whole is encoded into your state. The very best description that I've heard of this is you are the whole universe experiencing itself subjectively. Said by Bill Hicks, said by Alan Watts, said by everyone who has ever had a glimpse of this. And recognizing your place in the whole, recognizing that you are the whole, automatically brings compassion. It automatically makes you look at others, their struggles, their transgressions, and makes you realize that it could not have been any other way, and that they did the only thing that they could do in that moment. There is no need to fear. There is no need to hate. There is only a need to understand, to incorporate new information into your ego, to allow that process to occur through meditation, through simple meditative mindfulness practices that most people do unconsciously. If you are fully focused on a task, be it scientific work, be it art, music, whatever you do on a day-to-day basis, cleaning your house, all of these things are meditative processes, and all of these things contribute to your mind being able to incorporate new information into your whole, allowing that process to happen without resistance. So, to bring all of this to a close, and I apologize if any of this seemed like incoherent ramblings, to say it one more time, you are fundamentally the awareness. The drama is important. It's why we're here. It's what we're here to experience. Love, sadness, all of these things come with the experience. It's important, however, to take a step back occasionally or regularly. Recognize where you are. Recognize the moment you're in. And get in the habit of doing that. And the more you do that, the more you try to ground yourself in the present moment, see your thoughts for what they are, which is not something to be taken literally, but something to guide you. Ideas to pull information from that will push who you are in one direction or another as you continue along your path. Take the time to see your thoughts, to watch them happen, to be that consciousness for a moment and don't be your ego. Take a step back regularly, as often as you can, especially when you feel the ego asserting itself. When you feel anger, fear, discontent, all of these things. It doesn't mean that there's nothing wrong. But solving the problem is best accomplished by taking a step back and seeing what is actually happening. Seeing the thoughts as the product of ego, especially angry, especially fearful thoughts, and being in the present moment, examining the situation without getting attached to the thoughts. You don't have to believe a thought just because it appears in your head. You can look at it, examine it, twist it around and see all of its sides. And then, if it makes sense, if it fits into place in the moment you're in, then it makes sense. If, however, your thought is one of, this shouldn't be this way, I shouldn't be experiencing this, he shouldn't have done that, she shouldn't have said things like that, then that's ego. Because ego always forgets that things could be no other way. Ego places blame and demands praise. When you feel yourself placing blame, recognize that it's illogical. That the only correct approach is to examine the systems that are playing together and finding the dysfunction. When you feel yourself demanding praise, why didn't they appreciate what I did? Recognize that their perception was elsewhere. Not for any reason, not because they don't care, but because it needed to be elsewhere in that moment. Maybe they didn't notice. For whatever reason, it happened. There's no need to apply blame and there's no need to get praise except that the ego wants to. Because it supports the ego. It takes the ego to a place where it can give the physical form those adrenaline shots, those cortisol shots, those shots of fear, of anger, of fight or flight, which can be like a drug. The ego asserts itself in whatever way it can. But the present moment is its enemy. It cannot exist in the present moment as fear, as anger, as hatred. It can only exist in thoughts, and thoughts will be outside of the present moment. And thoughts are not you. So when you feel the ego flare up, try to practice being consciousness, being aware, watching your thoughts as something that is not fundamentally you. That's all I have on consciousness for today. I certainly hope that all of this was intelligible, that you liked it. It's only my second episode, so I welcome all criticism and feedback and hate letters and tweets saying that I should just shut down my account. Send them all through and I will consider each one. In the meantime, thanks for listening to the Radical Podcast. We'll see you back next time when we'll talk about something absolutely radical. Take care.